back to Midlife Krisis.
We're back.
We are back. And today we are going to be talking about, get ready, Uncle Bob. Get ready. Metroid!
Was that your big reveal?
That's my big reveal.
We have a whole bunch of props.
Yeah,
here.
but it's, look, I understand that we have a lot of props, but Mario Paint. I'm going to work in Mario Paint
every episode.
Every episode. And if I don't, it's only because I forgot. It's because I forgot to do it. But I didn't forget today. Yes.
Can I see it one more time?
Yeah. Oh, of course. Here, I'll give it to you. Okay, you're gonna get attacked by a Metroid. Hold on, ready? Oh, whoa! It covers your eyes. Perfect.
No.
Look at that. Oh God! It's sucking your will to live, but giving you a hyper beam. Man.
Giving you it gives and it takes away.
Yeah, giveth and taketh. So yes, we're obviously talking about Metroid. I thought it would be fun to take some of my precious moments dolls off of the shelf. That we can pull them out, look at them, talk about them before we get into the game there, or talk about the games there.
Your babies are definitely ready for showtime.
They are ready for showtime. They've been dusted. Well, at least some of them have. Here's a funny one. I'll start with this guy. So this right here, I'll show it in this camera right here. That right there is the first. That's the first amiibo I ever bought. And I got it for free. Oh, she's dusty.
Yeah, and yet
she's
one of the ones
dusty.
You did not dust.
Yeah, one of the ones I did not dust.
What a fraud you are.
What a terrible adult collector I am. So anyway, this guy I got girl, I should say. I got from pre-ordering Smash Brothers on the Wii U. So it was literally like a drug dealer saying, "Hey man, that first one's free, baby."
Yeah.
And then, as you can see, they got me.
That's
but
that was the start.
So these are all of the Metroid amiibos. I have every one of them. So we have Smash Brothers, the original Samus there. We have this one is one of the newer guys. That's the Shadow Samus from Metroid Fusion. Let's see what else. Of course, we've got this. As we all know, is Zero Suit. That's Babe Samus. She's not in her armor. She's in her athletic fighting gear.
Is that the official name?
Well, that's what I call her. And there's nothing wrong at all about complimenting the physical beauty of your precious moments dolls. There's nothing wrong with it at all. And I will not back down from this hill. Continuing the journey, everyone's favorite right here. That's Ridley. Or is it Ridley or Ripley? Whoops.
No, I think it's Rid with a D.
Yeah, it's Ridley.
Yeah, Ripley is a different
named
franchise.
which we'll talk about. That's without Alien, there would be no Metroid. Yeah. That's clearly the biggest influence on Metroid. And of course, this guy here. This is a Metroid.
I really like that one.
That one is my favorite one. It's got like a squishy top to it. And then this one is all from that same deal. This is like a crouched Samus. Those two are from Samus Returns. This one's also a little dusty. I'm sorry. I let you down. I let me down, and I let my babies down.
Yeah.
I let all my babies down. Oh, then there's this guy. This is a big ass. This is a big ass Metroid from I believe this is a Jax. For a while, these guys were really really hard to get, and then they did a reproduction of them. And oh yeah, this guy. Last one. Promise. As of recording right now, let me kick that glare off there. You can buy this on GameStop for $5 because they made too many of them because no one gives a hoot about these anymore. So there goes my retirement plan. But it's okay. So yeah, these are all of the Metroid amiibo, and then we have the two current Metroid games here. We've got Dread, of course,
and Prime
Remastered, of course. So Metroid. It is one of my favorite Nintendo franchises. For
one of the
sure.
most influential, of course.
Yes, and we'll let's discuss that. Actually, let's talk about the influence on Metroid because I have, and I'm certainly not alone in this. I have a bone to pick with the term Metroidvania.
I think I know what your bone is going to be, but I want to hear you say it first, and you have to trust me to give you an honest answer as to whether it's not the thing that I was thinking you were going to say.
Got it. So why don't we just call them Metroid likes?
Okay, that's the exact bone I thought you would pick.
Because that's what they are.
And that's what they are.
And here's the deal. So I, as a Nintendo 64 kid, read that as I made the wrong mistake back in the mid 90s, and we know that now. But with the N64, there's a lot of things you missed. Like you had your Mario 64, you had your Ocarina of Time, all that good stuff.
They were good franchises.
Certainly not a Metroid on there. But
Yeah.
I bring that up only to say that on PlayStation, there's Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which I never got to play. Was always jealous of people playing. Over the years, obviously, I've picked it up and I've dabbled with it, but I've never beat it all the way through until really recently. I bought the remaster that came out how many months ago. It's a great game. Like, it's honestly a super good Metroid-like game. And I know that it spawned 1.5 million other sequels that are that same style, where you go and you explore and get power-ups, unlock new areas, unlock the map, all that good stuff. So, like, it's obvious. Symphony of the Night's a great game. It's super influential. Like, I loved it. I enjoyed my time with it. But it's a Metroid game. It's just, so let's call them Metroid games.
So the original Metroid came out, I think, I'm going to say 1987.
Yeah.
And if that date is incorrect, then just do a little overlay.
Oh yeah, a little whoops-a-daisy.
Right. And at that time, just what a time. So we're going to do a future content piece on like what the best gaming era was, because I think you and I disagree about that.
Yes.
But what a time that period from like say 85 to 90 was.
Yeah.
The original NES period, basically. Because you had the original Zelda and how revolutionary that was. You had Super Mario Brothers and how revolutionary that was. And then Metroid is almost this, I don't want to use the word forgotten, because Metroidvania is a game, but it's not what Zelda is. It's not what Mario is. Like, those are the two biggest pillars of Nintendo. And Metroid is not quite there. And maybe it deserves to be there, because in terms of just pure influence on the industry, it's as influential as anything else that ever came out.
So yeah, I think that we'll say in certain circles, Metroid is totally there. I think it goes without saying that it's not up to Mario and up to Zelda's mass appeal. But for people like me and you who grew up with Nintendo, and like, we kind of love more or less the whole catalog of what they bring. Like, I know for me, Metroid's way up there, and I would
top 4.
So people who aren't children who love Nintendo, or parents who love playing Nintendo with their kids, like people who like other games, like on other systems, hardcore gamers, if you want to call us that. Like, I think Metroid is one of our series. Like, it's made for us.
And if you were young, well, that's okay. I'll save that for when we actually start talking about the original Metroid. But describe what you think a Metroid-like game is, and we'll start there, and then talk about how each game plays into that.
Sure. So, Metroid-like game.
Yeah.
Not a Metroidvania.
Which so it starts here. It starts here, Brian. The movement starts right now.
That's right.
They're not Metroidvanias. They're Metroid-likes.
They're Metroid-likes. Perfect. So a Metroid-like is, we'll say it doesn't matter if it's 2D or 3D, because there's the Prime series. But I think what really makes a Metroid-like is you have kind of an open map. Parts of that map are restricted by various power-ups that you have to get in order to gain access to those areas. And I think probably the biggest key element of the gameplay is backtracking.
Yeah.
Because there's something about seeing a thing that you will need access to, but you currently can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that means you got to go find the thing to let you get to where you got to go.
And how interesting is it? I'm always really impressed when game developers do something that's unintuitive.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, more recently, like with the Soulsborne series, like when you die in Demon Souls, you only get half your life back. That's unintuitive, because you would think if you die, you will you need help because you died, so you should get all your life back. And some games will say, "Hey, do you want to turn the difficulty down? Do you want extra help?" And then the Soulsborne games are like, "No, we're going to make it even worse."
Yeah.
And yet, those games are really, really popular, and that decision, the hardcore decision, is really, really popular. The reason I bring that up is because in the context of Metroid, showing the player something that they can't get, if you were just in a design room talking about that, you would get a lot of criticism for it, because it'd be like, well, why are you doing that? It's going to be frustrating for the player. They see something, they can't get it. Maybe they'll spend 10 minutes trying to figure out that they can't get it. They're going to wonder where they need to go. It might be confusing if they figure they don't know where it is or where they have to go to get the thing that allows them to come back and get the other thing. And yet it's really, really awesome at just the experience of going through it, the progression of it, maybe even forgetting an item or seeing that you don't have access to an item, going further along in the game, and then maybe it's half an hour later, then you get the new item. It's like, oh, I can now access this area that I couldn't before. Awesome. I can run back now and get that other thing.
Right.
There's something very, very compelling about that. And
compelling and rewarding.
And it's not so obvious that it would be, but do you know off the top of your head who was the original guy behind Metroid? I don't actually.
It's Gunpei Yokoi.
Okay. Oh, well, I should have known that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's his contribution to Nintendo, as was the D-pad and the Game Boy.
little thing called the D-pad.
Yeah.
Ever heard of it?
Yeah.
Would you say that the Metroid series is the most influential NES franchise that Shigeru Miyamoto did not have a hand in? Or did he have a hand in Metroid like everything else?
So I don't at that time in 87, probably 86, I think the Famicom Disk System release was in Japan. He was at a point where he was pretty high up the chain already in Nintendo, but he wasn't like where he is now, which is basically like secret
God
president. Yeah. Secret ultimate boss of Nintendo. But I think it would have been like dumb to assume that he didn't at least walk over to the water cooler and be like, hey, does she move in the air when she jumps? Because you should do that. Because I did that in my game, and turns out kids love it. It's a really good thing to do, so you should do it.
I imagine it being right by the water cooler.
Just everyone who's making a platformer. Hey, do they move in the air when they jump? You should do that.
One of the most influential decisions in the history of gaming is just like some BS water cooler talk. Like, all right, well, we'll give it a shot.
And then he meets the guy who did Ghouls and Ghosts, and he's like, "What are you?
That's where you went wrong,
guy.
Yeah,
that's your issue.
That's why you're not at Nintendo."
So anyway, yes, Metroid, the first one. Let's just start there. I think we've gimped along through establishing what a Metroid game is. Maybe we'll say one thing about the character of Samus. Right there.
Wait, hey, do the character and then being attacked by the Metroid.
Oh, that's a really solid idea. Okay, so here, hold on. Pop her there. And then
incredible content.
This
incredible
this is why
content.
No! Look at that's perfect. No! Oh, God, no! That's Samus's voice. That's what she sounds like. No!
Can you do the sound effect of the Metroid sucking the Samus? Okay.
Let's not try that. Maybe not get on a list. Maybe not get on a list with that one. Okay. So Samus will get off. I think it's no spoiler now to say that Samus is a female protagonist.
Oh man!
And in the original Samus or the original Metroid, that was like the reveal.
On the schoolyard, people would talk about that. Like, did you know? And then there would be disputes.
Yeah,
like,
so
that's not true.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Do you have a story of remember? Do you remember?
100% I do, Brian.
Fantastic.
And I remember in second grade or third grade, somebody saying that Samus was a woman, and I was like, no way. There's no girls in video games.
In a video game?
Yeah. You gonna tell me that Mario has a sister too? And then I actually beat the game, or I either beat it myself or I watched a friend beat it, and then I saw the reveal myself, and I wish there was a camera on me then. The eyes would have been
what?
Yeah.
What?
Like, so I don't believe it. She's a girl. She's a she.
Yeah, she's a
and
she.
she's the one who had the gun the entire time.
Well, I think
she killed all those monsters.
I don't think it's speaking out of turn to kind of say the truth of the matter, which is games in the 80s were all the way marketed to boys. Yes. Like if there were girl gamers out there, they weren't too numerous. Obviously, everyone played video games, but the whole market was way more leaning towards boys.
Female protagonist, and then she's the only protagonist in the game. You could say Mario 2. You had Princess. You could play the princess character, but that's an ensemble. Metroid. It's a badass assassin sent to a planet to kill things.
She's the whole game. You're like, wow, what a badass character. I'm so glad I'm playing as this like spaceman, alien, predator type thing. And then all of a sudden you find out like, nope. she's a babe, bro.
Yeah.
And like it's a big deal, and
Really big deal at the time.
And
it's
but
still
there was
big
no
deal
other.
now.
It is, and that's my point. Like it was a big deal then. It's a big deal now, and you had all this time after Metroid, where games were coming out that still didn't have female protagonists, like until almost like Super Metroid, right? Like
you would have thought that maybe like this would open the floodgates. Like, oh, it turns out that gamers are not necessarily turned off if they have a female protagonist.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's a subset. there is a portion.
That's why they did the reveal at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because it was still the 80s. It was still the 80s, and that's what it was.
I mean, and not just the 80s, but like 87 is like the height of
the year Predator came out. It's the year Predator came out.
And it's like we're right between Rocky 3 and Rocky 4, so it's like that's your culture.
That's
right
the culture.
Exactly. Rambo 2, I think.
That's the culture at the time, for sure.
What's up? What's up, YouTube? It's your boy. Back with another Laserdisc review. First things off the top, I want to show you guys my new hat. It's got a puma on it. It's fucking badass, as you can tell here as well. Pumas are like action cats, and I love action movies. So like, the next thing I want to do for the Laserdisc community would be the movie Cyborg with Jean-Claude Van Damme. This movie is like fucking so badass. It might be maybe one of the more badass movies he's ever done. And that says a lot because Jean-Claude has done like fucking like so many badass movies. But today is Cyborg. Here, let me pop that on so that you can see me and it at the same time. As you can see, this is what I can do. Okay, so back to the write-up, it says right here, blood sports, martial arts wizard, Jean-Claude Van Damme. And that's exactly how I would describe him myself, martial arts wizard.
So, okay, memories of playing Metroid. Did you own it? Did you rent it? Did you love it? All that stuff. Go.
So I did own it. I did rent it, and I did love it. And at the time, I didn't really appreciate how good Nintendo's first-party games were. I mean, I'm less than 10 years old, so you don't know first-party versus third-party. But I did know that for about 3 years, every friggin' game that I bought on my 8-bit NES felt like it was just changing my life over and over again.
And over.
The kinds of experiences that you have that inspire you to do a video show about it 30 years later.
Right.
But, you know, Super Mario Brothers, The Legend of Zelda, Metroid, those were back-to-back purchases for me, and all three of those games could have easily taken me into my teen years.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. So I played it, and the coolest thing about it was being able to play and explore and try to figure out this map, and then in what was a theme with games like this at this time, Legend of Zelda is kind of another one. They gave you very, very little to go off of.
Yeah.
Zelda did give you kind of a strategy map or whatever, but generally speaking, they gave you very little to go off of. And in Metroid, you have these large corridors that you would quickly get to in the game.
Right.
And then the corridors had about 6 exits to each of them. And so all of a sudden, and again, I'm 8 years old. It's just overwhelming. It's like I could just go to all these different places. Like, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I get everything? And then the item acquisition was super fun to get, like the ice beam, and it's like, oh, now you can freeze the enemies and you can jump on top of them.
Yeah,
and
they become platforms.
And then that gives you access to different areas. Then the secret reveals, I remember, and I experienced this authentically, and I'm so glad that I did. There's one part of the game where you get an item, and then I think, I can't remember if you can leave the room or not. I think you can leave the room, but there was like a second secret in the room where if you went into the morph ball and then used the little explosives, there was like a tunnel where you could tunnel into another area, the original Metroid. That was super incredible to me at the time, because even something as simple as having an item room that had a second secret in it,
Yeah.
that was also very, very new.
I was literally that was on the tip of my tongue. Like the fact that you found a secret room that also held another secret.
Yeah.
Was like, holy shit, we are cooking with
We
gas
were,
now.
we were cooking with gas.
Yeah,
right.
it really changed the game, I think.
So the boss fights were really great. I don't think at that time, the original time, that I was able to beat it on my own. Now, talking about it is sort of triggering flashback memories. I'm certain that I beat it before I was 11 years old, because it felt like an achievement when I did. And all those games are really sort of hard and epic. Oh, the thing with the energy tanks as well. So you could get energy tanks and it'll give you more life, and then they're hitting all around the place. And then you would just go around, again, it's like original Legend of Zelda, where everybody would go around just burning bushes or whatever to try to find secrets. In Metroid, you would just shoot everything that you could everywhere.
Yes.
Because there might be a reveal of an energy tank or something. And in fact, there is in one of the areas in the top right tile, you could shoot upwards towards the ceiling, and there's just a random energy tank stored up there.
Yep.
And you'd be like, oh, so that's there.
Yeah, that's.
And then you couldn't get it until you got the long jump, and that's part of the Metroid.
Well,
gimmick.
then when you find that for the first time, that motivates you now to go and shoot every square inch of every wall that you find in the game.
But it's so if you have the right mindset while you're doing this, it's not tedious and it's super fun. It's like, man, there's secrets everywhere.
Yeah.
And even that energy tank, that reveal, it's like, well, you can't get it unless you get the long jump. But when you first get the energy tank revealed, you're not sure that there even is a long jump.
Right.
So again, it's one of those things where it's like, it could be frustrating because you don't know that there's a long jump there. So maybe you're thinking that there's something you can do in the moment to get it. You can't.
Yeah.
But if you have the right attitude about it, it's like, oh, well, maybe there'll be something later on and I get an item and I can come back. And then it turns out that's what it is. And that's become a hallmark of the Metroid game. So a lot of the early stuff, these ideas are so influential in games for the last 30 years. Like the Metroidvanias are still in 2023.
Metroid-like. I had to.
I'm on board with this, so I need to correct my language.
We have to correct our own language.
Correct our own language, right? So Metroid likes. It's still a really, really prevalent video game genre that you can buy games in, and all of it traces back to this. And it's not like there's been a revolution and it's unrecognizable. Right. It's still very, very recognizable. And when we talk about Metroid Dread at the end of this, there's all these fun callbacks to the original Metroid that show how those things are still relevant in today's gaming.
Totally. So for me, I didn't play the original Metroid until I was like a young teenager. It was after I'd played Super Metroid, and I loved Super Metroid so much that it made me go and seek out the original Metroid. When Metroid came out, I was too young. And then by the time I was really into NES, like, that's probably like 1990, 1991. It wasn't talked about as much. Like, at that time I was like starting to read Nintendo Power and stuff like that. And that's how I heard about it, but I never got around to playing it until later. In fact, when I started collecting video games, like in the 97, 98, so late 90s, that was when I first owned one. And I think for me, it's having played Super Metroid first and then going back to Metroid, like I kind of get a little bit cheated out of the experience because now like I know how those games are supposed to be played.
That's happened a lot to me. That sucks.
Yeah. But at the same time, like it was still a great game, and I enjoyed it immensely. However, and we can jump to the next one now, Super Metroid. Well, there's Metroid 2 for the Game Boy.
Yeah,
I never played it.
Oh, really?
Not I didn't play it on Game Boy at all until like years later when I got it on an EverDrive.
It's really well received.
It is. I played the 3DS version of it.
Oh, okay. Well, you still played it.
Well, yeah.
I appreciate.
I'm trying to weave a story.
I appreciate your commitment to being pinpoint accurate.
Yes.
You never held the old black and white LCD Game Boy and played Metroid 2 that way.
Back then, but I have played that game since then. But I beat the 3DS one, and it's great. And we'll talk about it when we get to there. This is probably going to be we'll just say it now. This is going to be a two-parter because we're going to be talking through a lot of Metroid games. Yeah. So we'll just establish that now. But let's jump into Super Metroid. Super Metroid is, I think, a game that you and I know it's one of my all-time favorite video games.
Totally.
You and I were first friends when that game came out. In fact, I beat Super Metroid because I borrowed your copy way back in the day.
And a recurring theme of the early days of our friendship.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll get to the infamous SimCity story when we talk about SimCity eventually. But just a quick spoiler, I deleted his Megalopolis.
He deleted my Megalopolis.
I deleted his Megalopolis. I did. You know, he's not salty about it at all anymore. It's fine. We don't talk about it still.
Happened in 1994.
Uh-huh.
When this is 2023.
Yeah. 30 years of damage, 30 years of PTSD over it. But so Super Metroid, I mean, I can't heap enough platitudes towards this game. I adore it.
Okay, so in some lists of all-time best SNES games, it's the number 1 game, and it's usually no worse than number 3. You talk about that. You talk about Zelda. Maybe there's some Final Fantasy 3 stuff in there, Mario World.
Well,
but it's always up there.
Yeah, I see it. There's been lists where it's been number 1.
I've seen it number 1.
And in fact, like, I mean, if you catch me on a usually I'd say 90% of the time, if someone asks me what's your favorite Super Nintendo game of all time, I'm going to say Chrono Trigger. But if you catch me in a mood where that mood being when I'm all hopped up on Metroid games, I might say Super Metroid is my favorite Super Nintendo game. It's that good, and I hold it in that much regard.
So just like Brian said, when he's all hopped up on meth,
wait a second, Metroid, Metroid. Yeah, it's I mean, what an experience, right? It's like so for me, going into it with no other Metroid experience, like all of the magic that comes from your experience in the 80s is what I got in 1994. And I think I was either 10 or 11 when I first played it. And like, you didn't really tell me much of, like, you know, what this game was. At that, I was obviously reading GamePro every month and Nintendo Power every month at that age. So I was very familiar with like what the quality of the game was in terms of reviews and stuff like that.
Right.
But I still kind of didn't really know all the way what I was getting into in terms of like the exploration stuff. So my first playthrough of Super Metroid probably took like, you know, 10, 15, 20 hours. And that's a game that people, like, you can get, just like we were talking about the original Metroid, like, to get the best ending in Super Metroid, you got to beat it in like under 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever it is. So, which is like, people have done it for sure. And I know I've done it with a Game Genie. But yeah, I love that game. Like, graphically, it's so good. It holds up so well. Musically, I think kind of sits. I'll say this. Easy. Best music on Super Nintendo.
Totally.
Yeah.
And the theme, the original 8-bit theme, is probably the best theme. Well, the Zelda theme is really good too. It's up there. Those guys. Again, Nintendo.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing.
I mean, I don't know how much sound processing availability there is on the 8-bit Nintendo.
Not a whole lot.
And to get the synthesized iconic sound that you got for the Metroid theme, which was carried over into Super Metroid, just fan-frickin-tastic.
Well, and in both games, like, it's such fitting musical choices. Like,
totally.
it's like proggy. It's very like sci-fi.
You're in space.
Yep.
Yeah, all of that.
It's hand in glove fit. It's perfect. And I think Super Metroid is in the whole series has great music like this, but for me, Super Metroid's music is the most memorable. It's a handful of game soundtracks that I will go out of my way to put on and listen to. I love video game music, but like, I don't really listen to it all that often on my personal time. But I make exceptions for Chrono Trigger's music and Super Metroid. It's just great stuff all the way around. So I mean, that's me. What about what's your Super Metroid story?
I got it for, I think it was my 14th birthday, so roughly April of '94, which is very shortly after it came out. Played it, beat it, have very specific memories of beating it. And in fact, when I beat that game, I had my then girlfriend, who you also knew, on the phone at the time, and I'm trying to explain to her Metroid, and I'm trying to explain like the story, and then I'm about to beat it, and she's pretending to be interested in it, and she wasn't interested in it, and I wasn't very good at explaining what's so compelling about it.
Didn't make the sale.
But the commitment was there.
Yeah.
Commitment was there. So the graphics are exceptional. It did a really good job of feeling exactly like what the 8-bit game felt like in terms of the exploration, and the way the map layouts were, and the items and the upgrades and all of that. But being really new, introducing new items, the speed running thing that you could do. Yeah. And then you could do like the power jump.
So finding let's talk about that really quick, because I can't remember a game before that did this. But like, there are these little areas throughout the game that were really well hidden that you would find these like critters and they weren't enemies that you shot. They were like happy, fun critters, which in a Metroid game is kind of weird because everything is like gross and sci-fi-ish.
And everything's an enemy.
Yeah, and everything's an enemy. Everything's trying to kill you. But like you would learn these special moves that aren't listed anywhere in any menu or in the manual or anything.
Yeah.
You'd have to watch what the critters are doing and then copy their movements. And that to me was like, I remember learning the boost, then crouch jump through, which is like, you have to know that. Like there's parts of the game that you have to.
I think there were 3 critters, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And the crouch boost I did figure out by just watching the critter do it.
Right.
The one I did not figure out, though, and this is, again, to show you how revolutionary these ideas were at the time, one of the critters introduces you to wall jumping, which is now just a standard thing that you do in a whole bunch of different games. And at the time, I may have had to call the Nintendo hotline for that, or at least like phone a friend or something. I don't.
Jeremy, it's Robbie. How you doing, buddy? It's me again. Look, Metroid's got me thrown for a loop.
How are the kids?
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't think I was able to figure that one out on my own.
Right.
And they just showed you what to do. It's like just jump.
Yeah, just do the thing.
And if you saw it now in 2 seconds, you'd figure it out. But at the time, there was no such thing as wall jumping.
Totally.
So it was like very, very confusing. But yeah, that was a thing. And then when you beat the game, if you rescued all those critters, you got the ultimate Easter egg, which was as your spaceship is exiting the planet, you see a little beam, which is them also escaping.
The little buddies.
It's the ultimate, like it's the smallest thing. You just see a little pixel kind of fade away.
But it makes you feel all warm and
fuzzy.
fuzzy.
Yeah, I saved these guys, so I did it.
I did good.
That was my good work.
Yeah.
So anyway, the game is great. I remember years later, I got a PSP, modded the PSP, and got all my old Super Nintendo games on it. And then I showed up, I think, to either your birthday party or some event that we were at together. And I hadn't seen you in a while, and I spent the entire party mostly ignoring you.
Yes.
So I could beat Metroid, Super Metroid again, a game I had already played. And at this point, we were in our mid-20s or whatever. So.
Do you remember during COVID lockdown, we would play online games together a lot, obviously, as you did. There was that one night that we played on the Nintendo's Switch Online service, the Super Nintendo one, and we just took turns. Like playing, we would on that thing you can swap who's one player. Like if you're not playing like a multiplayer game on there, like you're playing like Link to the Past, there's a feature where you can like hand over online handover control of first player. So that's what you and I did. Played a lot of Super Metroid together, and it was funny because it was just like, we were like having a conversation just like this, but then just playing Super Metroid because we have the muscle memory is there.
You knew exactly where to go.
Yeah, you knew exactly where to go and what to do, and it's perfect because that game is pretty damn close to perfect.
It's just about perfect. Oh, and then a shout out to the boss fights in that game. Those were again. There's a couple actually little extras I want to mention. So one was the boss fights. Specifically, Ridley was also in fact, I think it's one of the first bosses you encounter is Ridley. They used the Mode 7 graphics to show.
Well, that's in the very beginning.
In the very beginning,
of the game, where you find out that the last Metroid in captivity.
That was one of the other things I wanted to mention, which was
the sound.
That was actually pretty cool. That was pretty good sound.
Yeah, it was really good sound, and you didn't hear anything like that.
No,
I'll give you a little piece of obscura.
Yeah.
There was a vertical shooter that came out on the Genesis called Task Force Harrier in 1989 that had like crystal clear CD audio for like 2 phrases that the guy says in the game.
That's our whole budget.
Yeah, it literally was the whole budget of that game because it's not a good shooter, but man, does the 2 sentences that the game says sound very, very good.
I specifically remember because that's the first thing you experience in the game is that audio, and I was like, man. What a game.
Yeah.
Like nothing had happened.
Yeah, exactly.
You just hear that and you're like, I can't believe how advanced this game is.
Yeah.
I'm hearing a person talk. This is great. All right, so there's that, the Mode 7 graphics on the first boss fight, but even the boss fight against the bigger villain, who I believe is Kraid.
Yeah, Kraid is the first big villain that you fight.
And he's huge. He's like 5 or 6 times Samus's height.
Yes.
And that felt very epic as well. I hadn't experienced a boss fight against an enemy that had that kind of gargantuanness to it. So bonus points for that. I think that's all off the top of my head, the little extras I wanted to mention.
I think so. I mentioned this earlier, though. The hyper beam, the whole the way the game wraps up from an ending standpoint. So you get down after you beat all the major bosses, then you go to the area of the game that has Metroids. None of the game has Metroids.
Yeah, that was a cool reveal too.
Then you're in this last place where Mother Brain is, and that's where all the Metroids are. And then you fight your way down, and it's at this point of the game you have all your power ups and stuff like that.
Put the Metroid up while you talk about the ending of the Metroid.
This one?
Well, you can do that one or the overlay.
Wait,
Either one.
It's gonna eat your head. It doesn't look good at all.
It's just your hand.
Yeah, it's just my big old stupid hand. We'll give that another college try. But yeah, that whole ending where you're fighting Mother Brain and then you're dying, and like I'd never experienced that in a game before either, where it's like a direct experience where like you don't really know that there's no way for you to beat this boss, but you're fighting and you're trying.
This is right.
And
I forgot about this ending.
And then you're down and out on your last bit of health,
Yeah.
and then the baby Metroid that you rescue comes in, takes away Mother Brain's power, and then gives it to you, and then you have the hyper beam where you're like an unstoppable killing machine.
Yeah.
And then that you have to finish off Mother Brain, and then like every other Metroid game, you have an evacuation deal at the end. And man, oh man. What a satisfying
That was
thing.
totally great.
And totally unexpected, because
Absolutely.
I did, even though like you had played the game already at that point when I borrowed it from you and it was in magazines, like there's no internet, there's no nothing like that. So this was completely unspoiled for me.
That was also during that timed exit.
Yeah.
That's how you get the third critter.
Yes.
Is instead of going to your ship, you go the other way. And
exactly.
You can release the critter. And it's like, how good did that feel? When you're 10 years old, you're like,
right.
I saved all of them, and the critter that would have died in the planet explosion or whatever was easy. You made it, buddy.
You made it, little pal.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But what a fantastic ending. And you're right, directed experience is a good way to put it, because that's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah.
And again, you're talking about Super Nintendo 16-bit stuff. All of this was fairly revolutionary at the time.
Oh well, yeah,
and brand new to me.
And in terms of storytelling, like I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Super Metroid tells this like epic story, but it tells a story. It's memorable. Everything about it, in terms of like these critters, the baby Metroid, you feeling for it, the feeling of dread that you have when you're fighting Mother Brain at the end. Like all of that tells a story without one word written or spoken in the game, with the exception of the last Metroid is in captivity. The galaxy's at
great
peace.
Words they were.
Yeah. So yeah, man. Metroid and Super Metroid, fantastic games.
Yeah.
Game Boy's Metroid 2, I played later. Didn't play at all.
Not played at all.
But we're going to put a pin in this one right now, because there's a lot of Metroid to talk about, and this is a good natural stop. So thanks for joining us on part 1 of Metroid. We're coming back with part 2 in not too long. So, ta-da.
He just wants the world to be better, and so he's like looking for research, right? And there's like a girl who's a cyborg, okay? And then like what'll happen is he goes after her, right? But then like and there's all kinds of shit, and then there's this other part that's so fucking badass, right? And then there's a fight, and then the bad guy, he goes like, oh, and I'm like, oh man, if you haven't seen this movie, which like full disclosure, I actually haven't seen it. I bought it because of the cover, and I'm kind of going off what people have told me about it, right? But I know I've watched Bloodsport a lot of times, so like I know this is gonna be good, and just based on what I've heard, I know it'll be good. So like and subscribe it, because it helps so much. And I know that you like these, and I like these, and I want to keep them growing. Hold on, I'm gonna organize these better. You know how like at the bottom of these, like you'll have one left? I got a few of those. Going, so if I put them on, if I make the stacks bigger, right, it'll look cooler, and then like it's kind of like I get more cookies, right? Oh, hold on a sec. So in one of my previous reviews, I did cool as ice, and I did I did remember a thing I wanted to bring up about the yellow motorbike. It is not a Suzuki, it is a Yamaha. A Yamaha. So if you ever hear anyone talking about this yellow motorbike, now you know. Cool as ice, yellow motorbike, Yamaha. You'll get it right every time on trivia. Okay, just keep doing what you're doing. I'll keep doing what I'm doing, and I love you.